All right, so I have today. I'm gonna do probably a big chunk of work today. Probably two big, like probably gonna be streaming like marathon style. Maybe going for 10 hours or something like that. But I might break it up or take a break from streaming in the middle at some point. Um, I'll need to get food once or twice and so on. But I have today and then I have some of tomorrow. I don't know if I'll stream tomorrow, but I have some of tomorrow, and then the version that if I'm gonna submit to 7DRL, which I'd like to do, then I need to submit tomorrow. So these are sort of the last days. Today's the last full day I get, and then after that I'll be slowing down my pace and continuing on with this project. But that's the deadline for participation in the challenge. So where am I at? I'm actually in the middle of some stuff. We can see I've got compilation errors that are uh, blocking me. And I was in the middle, last time I was working on this, I was in the middle of sort of moving towards finally adding the last big thing I need to make this feel like a game. So I have uh, regions and an exploration system so you can explore regions and find more like access to additional new regions to explore through the game. And I have random combat encounters, which is fine, but it doesn't feel very interesting yet because there's no dynamics to your capabilities as a player. Whatever you're able, you have a bunch of choices you can make in combat, but there's no the there's no the only variety you ever experience is from the variable of what thing you're encountering. So the what thing you're encountering changes. You have to change your behavior to deal with it. Uh, that's all good. But what I don't have is that your capabilities shift or that you have one-time use options or resources or anything like that. And so I think that would take it up to the next level because then you can start to see how like okay each encounter is a combination of what capabilities you came in with and what thing you're encountering, and so the order in which those happen is interesting, and also the way that your decisions now not only they impact whether or not you get to the end of this encounter, they impact what options you will have in future encounters, which right now what options you have in future encounters, it doesn't matter how you played previous encounters because you have no resources to spend. So I think that this is the last big piece that will start to make it feel familiar, like a roguelike, like a strategic RPG type game. So I want to get to that, and I was gonna start with the ability to just like track some things. We have health on the character, and that's the one thing that does track from one encounter to the next is how many injuries you've taken. But what doesn't track is like if you've picked up items or anything like that. We don't have anything like that. So I was thinking a good place to start would be throwing something like a key, like a count of keys. So going kind of with like the Binding of Isaac type of system where you don't have an arbitrary inventory. I might add that too, but like where keys can go into like you have a count of them on the side, and we're counting how many keys you've got, right? So keys will be this like privileged thing, not a part of a generic entity system for inventory, right? So let's try to get that working. Now the other big thing I probably have to do at some point is I need to, if I'm gonna be adding stuff like this, is I need to have the game be able to, like if I play it, I need the game to be able to like show me somewhere. Right now, I just sort of center on the screen what's happening. I think what I might need to do is take this and maybe decrease the width a little bit and shove it over a little bit so that the story text can be over here, and then like a sort of smaller set of player state variables can be shown here, so you can always see like you have this and this and this and this, right? That might also give me a way to construct the interface for interacting with the inventory, although that's a trickier idea to go all in on, because it might end up meaning I need two separate alive systems, and I haven't built that yet. So that might be something I need to do today to make this feel like a game in time for the challenge. So that's kind of the big thing. Let's add in keys. Let's add in that panel on the right. First of all, just making it non-interactive to show information. And then maybe talk about how I could have like consumable items that I can click on over there, and if I want to have them there or if I want to add them to the system here. But you can see like right now if I explore, okay, so I ran into a bat. So I can just take in one of these actions. If I fight the bat, okay, so I beat the bat, right, and I can keep exploring, and I encounter a rat, and I can keep exploring. Now a dark ooze, I'm gonna just run away, and there we go. I found a locked chest, and I don't have any keys, so the system knows I don't have any keys and doesn't show me the key option. If I try to force, nothing happens because there's no items for me to gain. So like this is where we want to get to the point where I could find a key, and then I would have a key here, which I can't do yet. And once I see that I have a key here, then I could use it to open the chest instead of trying to force it. And then we want to put items in the chest and put items around in the dungeon, and be able to use them too. So those are the goals for today. If I can get that much done, then I think I have enough of an engine that I can fill in the content tomorrow. So I want to focus on those last core capabilities. Bitwitch, Alex, welcome. Thanks for coming and hanging out for at least however long you do. Okay, so why do I have compilation errors? Where did I leave off yesterday when I got interrupted? Game state key count. Okay, so it's not key count, it's logic.key count. That's the mistake. Okay. Right, so here I'm implementing how the action of using a key would work. So it checks if you have keys, decrements it, do an unlock. And then there's a question of how I would actually do an unlock, which is tough. I think for now I'll just be very direct, and I'll say like, let's look at what kind of entity we have. If we have a locked box, then what I'm gonna do is I'm just going, whoops, that's not where I wanted to type. I'm just gonna say, can we schedule. I want to just mark the entity as no longer needing to be tracked by the game. It's no longer going to be something that I need to return to. So if I open the locked box, like to do get items from the box, right? But don't have an item system yet, so I can't actually do that. I can't get keys. I could get keys from it if it had keys. But besides that, I don't have a way to actually gain resources yet, so I can't do that part. But what I can do is at least say, once you succeed at unlocking a box, then we just don't even need to track that entity anymore. So just mark it as used up. Let's see, this is the current region. Game region. Oh. Okay, current region. There we go. And as soon as the jam is done, as soon as the 7 DRL challenge is done, there's a lot of stuff in the system that I don't like. So like right now, what I'm gonna have to do to mark something as used up is to take it out of the region's known entity list and add it to like a used up entity list. I could also just reuse my defeated entities, but the point is whether or not I use a new list or not. I'll just put it in. Do I want it in defeated? I'll call these finished entities. If I put it in finished, that's fine, but I'm just gonna have to assume that it actually is in the known entity list. So if I accidentally have a bug, which this would be a bug, but if I have a bug where this entity has already been moved off of the known list for some reason, and then I say I want to use it up, that would be that would like lead to corruption of the system, right? So that would be a very unrobust way to set up the entity system. An ideal way to do this would be something like, oh, it checks to see where the entity is, removes it from that sort of status tracking structure, and then plugs it into the one that you want to do in a sort of reliable way that works no matter where it is. But for now, we're just going to have to assume, and we can't even assert it because there's no assert for this that can run in like a single line, right? So I'm just going to have to assume that that entity is in this list when this function gets called. It's not a good way to program, but it's what I need to do to make progress on this jam without getting bogged down in redeveloping the entity system now that I know more about it. So yeah, here we go. Okay. So I can at least mark an entity's used up. So if I go and force a chest open, okay, nothing is happening. I thought that would. Let's go and while we're developing this, let's do disable this. I'm gonna just keep this as a control variable forever so that I can toggle that as I'm developing from now on. So I want to go in and see in remedy why it is that I can't actually open the chest. So let's see, this would be like the interact with lock. Yeah. Let's just see if that gets called. Wait, let me actually check. Yeah, there's the problem right there. So this isn't even getting called. Now, how could I ensure that this gets called? So we're here trying to figure out what mode we're in. So if we're in combat, we do combat actions. Here, we don't have a way to check if we're in travel mode. So if we're not in combat, what we'll do is we'll ask Yeah, I guess one way I could do this is I'm just going to have a high-level dispatch and then a low-level dispatch. So we'll say, let's just break down all of the game actions and route them to their correct handlers for now. And I don't love that. I don't actually hate it. I guess that's not what I want. I guess it's like that. Combat, explore. I don't actually hate it as an approach, but it definitely is only necessary because of deeper problems. Okay, so still nothing is happening. So I'm going to drop a breakpoint here and see if we actually hit that path. Because now I feel like it should actually be getting hit. And it's not. Okay. So it doesn't actually deliver the payload that was still commented out. In that case, now it should hit. And it crashes, so we need to be debugging. First time I click it, nothing happens. Second time I click it, this happens. Okay. So what that means is I think it did actually trigger this the first time. That's what it seems like. Quickly try to force. Yeah, so we got here. How did we get here? Okay, somehow the interact lock breakpoint got lost. I thought I had a breakpoint in this function, but it just isn't there anymore. Must have accidentally unclicked it without realizing it or something. Okay, so what's not working here is that while we do this interaction, we don't update the story fragment, which is a big piece of what I'm saying is the sloppy architecture that we're dealing with here. So whenever we do something that changes the state of the game, we have to direct it to a new story fragment. And in this case, you've unlocked the thing. So this new story fragment should be like the what you got status from a box. So we need to write a new story fragment that we don't have that is directly associated with unlocking or opening the box, right? The results of opening the box. So let's write that one. And then it should be good. So let's call it discover lockbox, verbs lockbox, opened lockbox.c. Okay. Copy of this. You discover locked box. When does that get used? Discover locked box. I see. So it's going through a first encounter. So we're probably using a discover entity. We drop the title, we grab the entity, we grab first encounter, what do you do, and the verbs for that entity that we've encountered. So this won't follow the same pattern because I don't know yet if there's a if there's a general template that this would plug into. So it'll just write its own. Stowe 4K. Nice to see ya. The editor I'm using is called 4Coder. You can find it on 4coder.net. It's the vanilla version. I don't use any customizations. It's an editor I wrote like. I mean, I started it. I don't know. Maybe. I want to say 9 or 10 years ago at this point, and I haven't worked on it for a while. But there's a community around it that has continued to maintain it. But I'm happy with the state I got it into and just use it as it is. Wait, locked. Yes, opened locked box. I want them to match. Okay. What you find goes right here, which we don't have yet. And then what do you do? And decide exploration, right? We're gonna just say, okay, after you've completed opening a box, you get some stuff, and then you go back to an exploration decision. So that's how you get linked back into the flow of the game. Thank you, Bitwitch. I I was just saying I'm gonna start playing my music. That's the bit you missed. I'm using the button on my mic, which has a light, but unfortunately the pop filter also like directly blocks my line of sight to the light, so it's a little hard to tell if I've screwed it up. But we should be good now. Enter the dungeon, go quickly, try to force. The chest opens. And then you don't find anything, and you go back to exploration. And the chest isn't in the list. And if I find a chest, and I leave, then I can explore again. Now I found some locked chests. Here's the stairs going down, and I'm gonna go back to the first locked chest. Oh, so those aren't working. Why is that busted? When did that get busted? Okay. Go to dungeon, explore quickly, leave. That should do something. So let's figure out... Oh, I bet I know when this got busted. Let me check something. It just occurred to me that we have this game action switch here. And yeah, look at that. I forgot to include this guy, turned entity. There we go. So if I explore, I leave the chest, I explore again, I leave the chest, I go back to the first one, I try to force it open, I explore, Wait, that feels wrong. That feels like it just did the wrong thing. I explore, I leave, I explore, I leave, I go back, I force it open. Thank you, Remedy. I explore. Okay, that did the right thing. So maybe I was just clicking through it fast enough and I missed it. But I should be able to go to the stairs, descend. I go back to the stairs going up and ascend. There's the locked chest. Go back down, explore another locked chest. I'll leave it. Go back up. Locked chest, try to force. Go back down. Explore. Leave. Go back up. Explore. Secret encounters not implemented yet. Explore. I've turned over every stone. Now, once it gives you the message that you've turned over every stone, you can't do any more exploration, but you can still go back to the entities you know about to go down the stairs. Okay, brilliant. So that's all good. That's looking good. Hello, the gentleman. Welcome. Okay, so we've got it working as far as I can open a chest. It can't give me items because I don't have an item system, but I don't want to build an item system first. The first thing I want to do is I want to add the key system, right? This will be a much simpler one, and it'll give me enough. It'll give me enough to work with to build the player status panel thing that I need. So you can find locked boxes. You can find downstairs and upstairs. You can find doors to story event things and other kinds of doors. You can find locked boxes. You can find key. All right, so let's build that out. Where in the code do I reference the locked box? All right, so here I'm saying generate 2 chest entities on each level. What I'm gonna do instead is I'm gonna roll the number of entities. And I'm going to use the same system I did for another system here. So the roll number will be the chest potential. And chest potential will start off at 1. And so that'll roll me either a 0 or a 1. And then what'll happen is I will clamp that to 2. So it's up to 2 chests. You don't get more than 2 chests in the same level. And then I update the chest potential in the following way. I want to add 1 and subtract n. So however many I generated is always less than or equal to the number I had, and then I add 1. So it never goes to 0, because like if this is a 2 and I generate 2 chests, then I do these go to 0 and that's plus 1, right? But if this is a 1, then n can't be a 2. It can only be a 1 or a 0. So then this can still only get to a 0. So there's always 1 extra, which means that chest potential, since it's never 0, it's safe to roll n. It's not safe to roll this is an invalid. This is like division by 0. But you can roll 1 or more. So that's always good. And then the number of chests is how many we generate here. And then what we are going to do is say same thing for keys. Let's have key potential. Let's say there are more keys, because I might want things other than chests that you unlock. I guess I don't have that yet, so let's start with keys just matching. Up to 3 key entities. And so we'll increase the clamp there. Chest becomes key. Key potential. We stick entities. I'm going to rearrange things a little bit. So I want the list of entities to go there. Okay. And so these little blocks here are deciding how many to put in the list. But they all get dropped into the same list. And then scheduled into the exploration of the dungeon level. The gentleman says, I want to become a software development programmer. Please give me some advice. That's a pretty broad question. Practice would be my advice. Like, figure out something that is just a little bit too hard for you to do and achieve it, and then repeat that thing that you just achieved. Even though you've achieved it once, achieve it again several times, and then pick something that's a little bit harder and do the same thing. And do that over and over again. And never stop. No matter how good you get. That's my advice. If you have a more specific question, I might be able to give you more specifically useful advice. But that's that general question. You get a general answer, I guess. Okay, so the other thing I got to do is put a key instead of a locked box into the schedule when I do that. But otherwise, yeah, our key potential will just sit there and spawn keys for us. So now the question is, what happens when we find a key? And that's all gonna live over here. I forgot about that. I forgot Forklighter had this. Crazy. Okay. Key properties. Okay. So this is different, right? When I find a locked chest, the verbs I want to give you are like things that are interacting with that. When you find a key, I could give you key verbs. I got verbs for a key. I could give you like something more generic, like verbs for an item. And say like, yep, you can just say, I want to take this, right? Right? So that would be the verb. You can take it or leave it. Or I could say picking it up is automatic. And you go straight into deciding your exploration again. The concern I have is that by default, the way the system works is it's going to remember the entity in the list. So if I don't force you through a path where you take a specific action related to the entity, then there's no specific thing going, hey, we like the auto pickup trigger. I'd have to build the new system for that. So plugging it into the existing flow makes it more tedious. I think I want to do it this way though. And that the reason is, even though this is likely to cause us a little bit more headache right now and therefore is worse for the 7-day challenge that I'm currently doing, I care more about the long-term structure of this system. And this is the kind of tricky thing that I want the system to be able to help with. So I want to push it into this direction. And so I would rather sacrifice a little bit of time now and have less done for the challenge, because I'm afraid that if I didn't do that, I would kind of lock myself into a less powerful notion of how all this stuff fits together when I go to improve the system for the rest of the month. So yeah, this is what we're going to try. We're going to see if something like this works. If I can't make it work this way, I might have to... There's a couple options here. I might have some wiggle room for how to make this happen, but we're going to try to do it this way. So first, we need to write how discovering a key goes. So discovering a key goes like this, and then we'll just include right away the auto pickup right inside the text. Now, I'm thinking yeah, this is fine for now. It's a little bit generic roguelike-y. Like, what's the story of a key being left behind? So basically, my thinking is like, wait, what's the story here, right? I'm constantly thinking of this as a story engine, so it's like, how much of this is just becoming clone roguelike mechanics and not a story? And I kind of enjoy it when I come back to a thing like this and figure out how to make it a story and not just a roguelike mechanic. The gentleman asks, what languages should I learn and what to learn to be at my level being me, Alan. And you don't need to apologize for your questions. I didn't mean to be difficult. I was just more like, I can't I can only help you based on what you give me. So, if you're asking what languages to learn, if you're a complete beginner and you haven't done any programming, then um, I don't really know what to tell you, because the sad thing about being a beginner now is that it's different than being a beginner when I was a beginner. So, like, the path I took was to use GameMaker 7. I learned how to do drag and drop programming there. I played with the Age of Mythology level scenario creator, and they had, like, it was like a visual programming system where you could set, like, quest variables and triggers, and so you could arrange for um, logical connections between things the player achieves and new events in a scenario. And so I kind of learned the basics there, and also like doing Excel spreadsheets. And then once I had spent some time there, I went and learned C++. And it was, well, first, between that, so once I'd done those visual things, I learned the GameMaker scripting language. And then I went and learned C++. And that was my path. And I would say it took me maybe 2 or 3 years of toying with computers through the visual interfaces of like Excel and the scenario editor and GameMaker's drag and drop before I made the leap to the scripting, and then another year or two before I made the leap to learning C++. So it was a slow process. I don't think it has to be that slow, but I think that it is helpful to really spend time toying with things at your level. A lot of people who are learning go and learn a language and they start learning the algorithms and find themselves trying to, from my perspective, speed run getting comfortable with them. And that's why I said practice. Like, take something that's just a little bit hard and repeat it until you've tried it a lot of ways and like really get it good. So if you're asking which tools to use, the problem is that the tools I use aren't the same as they were back then. But if you can find something that is just barely challenging to you, it's challenging but it's achievable, and you can repeat there, then you're good. If you're asking where does that exist now, I can't say, because I don't have the like my entry ramp doesn't exist in the same form as it used to. But it's important that you pick something. So like, yeah, I like what Alex is saying. Like, the practice is the number one thing. If you are asking how to get to where I'm at, is just spend a lot of time and not rushing to get good, right? If you try to rush to get good, you won't achieve it. But if you take the time to dig in at the stuff that's at your level and try lots of variations of what you can achieve now, and then when it feels that it's become easy, then you push yourself up one step. You try something harder. So you try something just like that you know is going to be hard for you, but you see if you can get there. And if it's too hard, you find something else. I've definitely done things before where I was looking for a new step and I tried something way too hard for me, and then I had to find a different new step. But that figuring out what you can do next is kind of something you almost have to do almost on your own. If you have like peers who are at similar levels to you and they're discovering stuff, listen to what they're telling you about. That helps a lot. Like, if you have someone who's almost at the same level as you and they're trying out new things and getting excited about it, pay attention, because that might mean that they have found a good place for their practice, and that might be a good place for you to pay attention to. But if you're a beginner and you're asking me how to get to where I'm at, the problem is, like I said, my on-ramp is no longer there. At least, like, GameMaker is totally different. It's not as easy as it used to be. It's still a great tool, probably much better than it was before for making games, but a lot of it is a little more advanced than it was when it was GameMaker 7. It was a little harder as an entry point. But it might still be a good one. I don't know. But yeah, I don't really feel like if I tell you a language or a project to do, that it's going to help you that much. Especially because I still don't know that much about you. Okay. So I can discover a key. It's going to tell me that I put it in my pack. What's next? Let me come over here and think about it. So what's going to be interesting is now when we want to see when we have first, okay, discover entity. There it is. So it's going to go through this discover entity path using this entity. And you see it's immediately assuming okay. I'm going to use mark entity known. Again, this is a unfortunate disaster. This is a soft disaster of an entity system right now. And so that's actually doing like way more redundant work than it needs to be doing. And my Spotify just stopped for no good reason, so let me fix that. Yeah, it's like, this is not quite a good entity system. So this is not built exactly for this purpose, but it does achieve the result, which is now it says, here's where we're marking the entity as known. But I don't always want to do that anymore. What I'm going to do is say, hey, look, when we grab an entity encounter, sometimes some entities that we can encounter, like the locked box and the downstairs and the upstairs. You know, here's what I'm gonna do, because there's so many of these that are like this. I don't know what the default should be, but I'm gonna say, that the key is the unique case. So on default, we mark the entity as known. With the case of the key, we've removed it from the list. It doesn't go into the known entities because we're just going to pick it up right away. So we're just going to do QU game and this is where maybe we'll start like a game item system, and we'll have for keys, you just go QU item get key, something like that. So you find a key item, you just get a key. That's it. No more. So I'm gonna comment in the conversation in the chat is continuing about where to get started with programming, and people are recommending like finding good books and what kinds of tutorials or video series or something to focus on, and all of that is good. I can't emphasize enough that doing projects is the most important thing. Like, you can learn from those things, and I definitely have used them too. I'm not discouraging using them, but you can read about programming and watch programming videos for all your whole life and not get good at programming. And you can do projects and start learning the skills. And then those books and video series will be much more useful. or at least much more interesting, because they will start to appear not just as sources of the key information, but more like thought processes from other people who have tried to practice programming, and you might start to develop a taste for, like, I like what Bjarni is saying, or I don't like what Bjarni is saying. I read a couple of Bjarni C++ books back in the day, and now, like, I would say I wouldn't recommend them, but I don't want to discourage you from reading them, because reading them is part of how I got where I'm at. So it's not that I wouldn't recommend them in the sense that you shouldn't read it if you have it. What I'm suggesting is, like, it's not going to make you a good programmer no matter what resources you find. And also, it's fun. Like, it's creativity, right? Like, if you are reading, then you're studying. You're in school. You're like crunching for the test. You're trying to get smart. But if you make stuff, it's like creativity. You're making a thing, even if it's a bad thing that doesn't do any good for anybody. There's just some sort of joy if you find the right path that lets you make a thing. That if you can tap into that, it's gonna give you a lot more wind in your sails to get better. Okay. So, if I've done all the pieces right, what should happen here is I should be able to explore. Oh, I found stairs. That doesn't happen very often, but sometimes you find the stairs right away. I'm going to explore. What? Okay, so there must be a bug. In the generator. Why did we not find any... How did we find 0 entities? Oh, we have a separate list right here. So those are going on that, but how did we not find any chests? Surely we still should have found chests. Unless we rolled 0 chests. That's possible. I think I want to add in another rule, which is going to be interesting, which is going to be n min is going to be 0. If you're on the first floor of the dungeon, I'm going to guarantee you get a chest. And so the way that's going to work is we're going to go n raw is 0 if chest potential is greater than n min. Then we will roll the difference and add in the n min. Right? So what this means is now the roll, if we have an n min of 1, which is possible on the first level, so you're guaranteed a chest, then the roll doesn't have that. It has a sort of base value built in, and then we don't roll as hot, like the maximum value here. And the reason we do the comparison, because that should be an n min, n right. So if the chest potential is equal to n min, this would become an invalid roll, because like I said a few maybe 20 or 30 minutes ago, I can't roll 0, right? That's like dividing by 0. So I have to do this extra check now. Yeah. Brett, you got to do clamp is like, here's your min, your x, and your max, right? You put it in the middle. You got to do clamp top is like x and the max value, and clamp bottom is like min and x, right? If you start writing it this way everywhere, it gets so much easier to think about using clamps. Yeah, and if you do this, the hard part is like, I want the min, right? So clamp top is the same as min, which is super unintuitive. But yeah, I do have a min and max in my code too, which is sometimes the intuitive way to talk about it, but more often than not, clamp top and clamp bottom are, well, obviously clamp bot, which you just have to know means bottom. And for obvious reasons that Brett understands why you have to do that. Brett and I have this common quirk of really liking when parallel constructs in the code have the same length name. That's what that was about. Okay, so I don't have a key yet. Let's see if I can find a key. Okay, something is very bad, because it says I've explored everywhere. Yeah, something is super messed up. One, it should have shown me a downstairs before it got to you've explored everywhere. Two, it should have shown me keys, which it didn't do. Three, it should remember where the box is, which it doesn't. I need to look through the logic of, what is this called? Regular, find me the word. I need a regular, a regular explore breakpoint right here. Explore quickly. Okay, so that was just, we didn't get an entity that time. That is fine. Okay, I want to actually pause here for a minute. Let's look at the region in detail. The region has an explore max of 10, and entities explore is the list of what things we get as we explore. So we've done, yeah, this list looks all wrong. So I don't want to look here. I need to go to the generator. Something is busted, and it's in the world generator. So another thing I would do if I was not doing a 7-day challenge, if I was doing this, if I was doing this at a gradual pace, is debug visualization. I should be able to see the debug, like, even though, you know, you wouldn't have this in the real game, there should be a way to pop up just a list of this whole hidden state of the world, all the things you haven't explored, so that you can see the results from the generator visually. Okay, so what I need to be watching here is, for now, let's look at the chest potential and the key potential. Okay, so n raw comes out as 1, and then n comes out as 1, so we're going to get one chest, one locked box, done. Then key potential, we rolled a 0, so no keys, which is fine. No keys. And then the entities list, how does that look? Okay. So boom. Now what happens if I look at entities, explore 10? Okay, so this is actually fine. This is correct. Now that I look at this and think about it, it's correct in the sense that this is what the generator, it's not like actually that cool that I have such a big wide open empty list here, and I should definitely add in some like at least some small items to reward your exploration, or at least like to give you the sense that your exploration is uncovering something that are guaranteed to be in the early half of the level, even if they're not that big of a deal. Just to like say that yes, exploring is uncovering things. You are seeing more of the dungeon. But that means I was right in the first place. The problem isn't in the dungeon generator. It's in the mechanical implementation of the exploration somewhere. So if I explore, I want to see what happens if you actually find an entity. Okay, here it found the entity. It should be finding the downstairs. And so it's going to mark that as known, which means it's going to come in here. Okay. There's the problem. Okay. Okay, so I said that this would just work as a wrapper for this, but it actually doesn't. It doesn't because, well, there's an easy fix. As we're continuing to make a serious mess out of the system, I'm going to take that 0 out there so that marking it as known will work. Okay, and then I leave, and we actually do mark it as known. Explore quickly. You've explored everywhere in this area. There's nothing left to find. There should be a locked chest, which there is, but you didn't give me the locked chest encounter. There's still something busted. There's still something super duper busted. So let's say we want, where are our breakpoints? Yeah, show me that again. Wait, no, not that. Put it there, thank you. Gotta make sure it's not moving my breakpoint on me. All right, into the dungeon, explore quickly. What did we find? Downstairs, okay. We're not gonna take the downstairs yet because we wanna keep exploring. What did we find? Found a locked box. We mark it as known. We go to discover entity. Result equals 1. Result equals 1. Right. No, that's not right. Okay, got it. So around 1090, we see the problem. So what's happening here is we are in fact finding an entity and saying we're going to show this to the player. But then there's a chance. There's a chance that it's going to also be the last slot. If it happens to be that we found the last entity on the last slot, this overwrites the logic, and instead of showing the entity that we found, it tells you that you've finished exploring. That's not what we want. Right, that's not what we want. Instead, what we want is when you... Yeah. So what I'm going to do is every paragraph here that is like a logical check and potentially modifies the state of the game. So it does, each of these does like a logical check and then potentially modifies the state of the game and returns, hey, we've got an event for the player to deal with. They can only happen if we haven't already previously generated an event for the player to deal with. And Spotify's got to be refreshed. There we go. Okay, so that should do it for that. We are just hacking and slashing it up here, trying to get this to function properly. Find the locked chest. I leave it. I would like to explore thoroughly. I find a secret. I explore thoroughly. I find another secret. Wow, 2 secrets in the first dungeon level, and I haven't implemented them yet. Okay, I've turned over every stone in this area, so I've completely explored. All the game gave me was a locked chest and stairs going down. I could force the chest open, or I could descend. Right. Now, before I do any of that, well, let's go see if I can find a key. Found a secret. Stairs going down, don't want that. So I've got stairs going up and down. I'm on the 2nd dungeon level. Keep exploring. Another secret, and that's everything. All right, no keys. I'm starting to get super suspicious that there are no keys for some reason. Okay. Ah, I found a key and put it in my pack. Okay, so I don't think that's spawning enough keys. I'm not happy that I had to go that far, but it might just be random chance. It is procedurally generated after all. So let's go back to the upstairs a couple of times. And that lets us come over here to the lock chest. And finally I get to see, it does give me a use a key option. I use that. The chest opens. And let's go back down. Let's go back down. Let's explore. Let's stay here for now. I found another key, which isn't great because I wanted to find a chest and see if it would correctly show me that I can't use a key. But 4th level, found stairs right away, and there's nothing left here. Okay, so I don't like the fact that I'm not getting a lot of keys. How am I getting no keys? That seems... The probability that I got through 4 dungeon levels and found 2 keys seems low, given that you start with a key potential of 1, and well, you have a key potential of 1. I guess it's not that unlikely. You'd expect about 1 key per level, but to get 2 keys out of 4 levels isn't that unlikely. So maybe it's just fine. Not fine. Maybe the logic of the game might be off. Like I might want to make keys more likely, but I think the code is doing what I thought it should be. It's always hard when you're writing code that does RNG because you're like, is the problem that I just didn't design the RNG right, or is there a bug? And sometimes there's a bug that makes it so that it's not doing what you think it should be. Like you think it's a 50% probability, but it's actually operating at like 1% probability because of a quirk that's a bug that it only actually works in a really rare circumstance, or even when it should be working, it doesn't. And so it's like 0%, right? So like you can end up in a spot where you tune the parameters to give you the result you want, but that result that you get is only the result you get because of a bug you had. So your parameters are tuned with respect to a bug, and when you fix the bug, then the parameters are wrong, right? So it's a little tricky. But that is not the thing I need to be focused on right away. What's going to happen next is once the game starts and you enter the dungeon, I want to include a second piece of information on the screen at all times. So I want to think through how that could work. I could continue to show you... So a couple ways this could happen is I could take this and shift it up a little bit and then show you underneath some stuff. The problem with that is that like the message like vertically expands and contracts. Like it has a fixed width of how wide it can be where it wraps. But it can just kind of keep adding stuff down here. So I kind of want as much screen space, vertical screen space available as possible. It might be that I need to add in some like controls, like maybe these spaces should be smaller here between options. Maybe I should have a end paragraph, but like one that controls the line spacing so that I can make space here and stuff. But even so, even when I do that, I still don't think I want to position player info on the bottom, because of the fact that then I have to like watch out for the layout here. So I think it's safer and easier if I do something like, once the game starts, shift the layout to the right a little bit and put player info on the left. So you can just see like, oh, you have these stat situations happening or something. And I think I like it on the left better than on the right, because then I can left justify it. If I put it on the right, I'd almost have to like pick a rectangle and then left justify it within that rectangle, but then there'd be no boundaries. Putting it on the left just lets it I think that'll just let me get away with letting it float for now. So I think that's what I'm going to do. So let's just say we're going to do it even on the first screen. I think I want to have it both ways. So why don't we do this? I'm going to try to figure out how to lay it out first using this screen, and then I'm going to, but I want to be able to save, I'm getting myself all confused. What I'm going to do, instead of getting myself confused, is I'm going to just go ahead and skip to the part where where you're entering the dungeon. And in order for that to work, I do need to say, when we do game init, I'm gonna have to, let's see, what's the name of the world generate function? When does that run right now? It runs as a direct consequence of picking your purpose, so stick it right here. So when the game starts, I'll generate the world and pick your purpose for you, and you'll start at the dungeon entrance with no exposition. Enter the dungeon. Okay, so I've cut short the clicks I have to do. Here we're outside the dungeon. As soon as I click this button, I want the layout to change, because from then on you are inside the dungeon and you'll have the player stats become relevant. That's how we'll do it. So when you go to render, what do? QU draw currently does grab the game state, take the layout and the layout P, and draw them. That is good, but it's not great. So what we're going to change that to is, we might want to have two layouts, right? So what we could do is say this, right? So now the tick can generate one or two layouts, and the render path just sort of looks at them. Grab the main layout and call this the main layout P. And what we'll do is, yes, we only handle mouse interaction and animation on the main layout. That seems good and fine. These just run through the old live system. And so then we go game state layout 0 is the main layout, layout P0 is the main layout P, and the game state layout count equals 1. So this should have no change in the main behavior once I've got it building. It should just it should just look the same, but it then now has this room for expansion built in. And then we can go take advantage of the new room for expansion. Right, so this needs to start off with a 0, and we're going to fill it there. Okay. Okay. Very good, very good. Now, what we want to do is we want to have in current fragment. So here we use the game logic directly. In fact, I have an interesting question. Where does logic turn out to be relevant in this path? And the answer is logic is relevant in this range here. Logic is relevant here to here. Check this out. Right, so this needs to get lifted out because that is the main string. Right? But all the entire way game logic affects the rendering engine is contained within this block now. The rest of this is just a processing on the fancy string stuff that was sort of the core interface to the game. So I can now say that the way that a fancy string system is used is going to start to change. We're going to have a side string, and we're going to say if generate fill side string if the game's logic says that we are in the dungeon. Right? If the game logic says that we're in the dungeon, then the side string can be generated here's the root of the side string, and here we're just going to have like QU game side string. The side string won't have the alive system plugged into it. Because you're not going to be able to click on the side string at all. So we'll have the side layout, and we'll just go, okay. Here we might say like if the side layout equals 0, these are the parameters. Otherwise, we'll justify it either way, but if the side string equals 0, but we'll shrink it in a little bit. We'll say like you have less space to work with if you are sharing screen space with the side string, right? And so here we do the main layout. And the side layout will not be justified. It'll be a width of like 400 maybe is good. So when we have all the screen space for the main layout, it's 1200. We drop 200 off of that and give 400 to this. We had more than enough space on the left and right, so that this should be, it might be too small. We might not even be able to fit more. And you see this goes through a scaling thing, so it's not like these numbers I'm plugging in are hard references to the screen. They get rescaled. So these numbers assume 1920 by 1080, but then they get scaled to the actual screen size. So that is fine. All we have to do is say layout the side string, right? So this part is the same. The way we lay out a string, that goes through the layout system of the fancy string interface, so that we want it to be the same. The parameters will be different, but it's the same layout algorithm. But now what we have to do is say we have a side layout P and a main layout P. And the main layout P goes right in the center of the screen if the side layout is null. But if we have a side layout, then we're going to shift things around a little bit. Instead of putting this right in the X center, what do I want to do? I kind of want to just say like same basic idea, but let's say it goes at like 60% or so, like 60%, 2/3. It goes at 2/3 of position on the screen, right? So we sort of, instead of center, it's over here, and then the side layout P can be so here this is the center of the layout box, and then uses the width of the layout box so that the centering works, right? Do you know what I'm saying? Like this is the width of the box here, this X1. And so I pick the center position with this part of the expression, and then I offset it so that I'm actually saving the left-hand side of the box. And the reason I'm emphasizing that now is because that means we can do something like, hey, the side panel, we can just set its left side. Since we're left justifying it and everything, we can just say something like this. Alex, you've got a Vulkan renderer with a triangle. That is cool. It's a lot of work, it sounds like, but honestly 4.5 hours, I could probably see myself having to do that much to make it work in OpenGL too. That's not that different. I wonder if Vulkan is going to be hard at every step of the way in a way that OpenGL isn't, because usually OpenGL gets easier after the setup, but OpenGL setup is OpenGL. Oh yeah, that's an interesting question. Nilsson asks, are the vertices in the Vulkan triangle hard coded into the shader? Because that if you haven't got vertex data passing through, then yeah, that's a slower process. And in OpenGL, the 4.5 hours include setting up your vertex, setting up your frame buffer object, setting up your shader, remembering that you need to set the viewport. So yeah, that is slower, and a lot of code. 800 lines, 800 lines in 4.5 hours is also like kudos. That's a lot of coding. Heavy amount of coding. And I'll just say let's center it vertically still. So the side layout will still be centered vertically, but we are going to sort of stick it onto the left side of the screen. Rugs, hello. Yes, you can call me C programmer, I suppose. Okay, so I need a place to stick that. Is this a part of game entities, items, combat, commands, actions, payloads, fancy strings? No, it's not a part of the fancy string system. This belongs in its very own section called player status, function, void, QU, side string equals, yeah. Let's give it the frame. No, we don't need to do that. QU game side string. Here is the fancy string I want you to fill. Oh, there it is. Spotify would like me to go and remind it that I love it by refreshing the page so that it'll keep playing music. Oh yeah, this is C. You can 100% call me C programmer. It's just, people usually, I don't know. I just thought it was funny that you referred to me as C programmer. It's an interesting, I don't know, what's the name of when you when you call somebody something? Epithet, but not really epithet. It's just an interesting method to refer to me, but it's completely, there's nothing wrong with it. Not inappropriate or inaccurate or anything. Just amused me, I guess. Yeah, the word label could work there. It's kind of a programmery word to call that a label. I'm thinking like nickname or something like that, but nickname doesn't work either. I'm sure there's a good word for this. A thing that you call someone that would suit calling someone C programmer. Okay, so what are we gonna write inside the side string? That's the question, right? So what's funny is most of the string writing we've done, I've put into these QUS things, and I guess there's an interesting question here. Why am I not doing this as a QUS? It's not a story fragment because it can't take in a live system. That's why. It would be invalid for it to generate a live code snippets for now. Maybe eventually I will want a system where separate story fragments can all be splatted onto the screen with separate lives that you can interact with. That would be so cool, but I don't have the bandwidth to develop that strong of an engine in time for the challenge to end tomorrow. So let's see, I want small text. We're gonna go with 20 for this. And I'm going to add a new color to the palette for this. Color palette, let's say this will be the faded color. And that's just because I want it to be a little less bright than the main interface. So I think the basic is right here being fully bright white. And I'm just going to take that back to like maybe B0, B0, B0. So it's still white, but it's like not full white, bright gray, something like that. So Brett, you're saying I could use the sentence, that's a, well, because I'm looking for a noun. So yeah, I couldn't say that's an amusing denote for me. Right? You're saying, but yeah, as you said, it's not. Denote is a verb for it. So denotation, that is an interesting denotation for me. I guess, maybe? It is amusing to be denoted that way. Yeah. Well, then I could just say it is amusing to be referred to that way. Which is what I think I did say. Dubbed. Yes, that is a good word for it. The verb version. Player status, end paragraph. And then, let's see. Why don't we just say... let's skip that. I don't like that. Let's skip straight to what are the things in the logic of the game that I want to splat out. So, one thing I want is a counter of the number of injuries you have. And a counter of the maximum injuries you can take. So, game state, logic, player entity, injury count is the number of injuries you've taken, and game state, I think we need to get the player stat block. QU game stat blocks, player stats. So yeah, we're gonna grab a couple of things. We're gonna grab the player, which is a game entity. Game, get player entity, QU game, get stat, stats, entity stats, how do I get the stat block? What's the name of the function? Combat stats, right. Combat stats player, fair enough. So now I can just say player injury count, player stats, max health. Yeah, I want some way to write how many injuries you can take. I think I'll just stick with that for now. You know, it's a little ugly. It's a little, but it's very roguelike. Very roguelike style. What else have we got? Game state. I could include the purpose. That would be cool. You are an archaeologist. You are a beast slayer or whatever. Put that in there. Let's put time. Again, need a better way to present that as a narrative thing. Not gonna focus on that for now. So let's see. We have our health. We have our key count. That's the other thing we want to get in there. And then let's do game state purpose case to game purpose. I forget, we have game keys actually for like, yeah, for this. Did I go and plug those into? Yeah, I did. I'm going to use that instead. I'm going to start trying to shift to thinking about it that way everywhere. So what I can do is, when I am doing the side string, I'm going to switch on the player's key. And these are the three things the player can be: thief, beast slayer, and the archaeologist. Actually, I have eliminated 2 of these options from the challenge version just for scope. Archaeologist. Just for the purpose of scope, I've made it so you have to play the beast slayer. Just for the challenge, I'll get it back to. I want to have support all 3 game modes that I had in mind when I started, but it was just getting to be too many different pieces of variable for me to deal with for the 7 days. So I'm just allowing this for now. But let's build this out as if it's this for the full month. Moniker. That's a good word for what I was talking about. Good idea. I wasn't necessarily trying to remember something as much as I was trying to just... Yeah, I thought there might be a word. I think moniker is the best word. Moniker. It's just, if you call me C programmer as if it's my name, use it in a sentence like my name. Hello, C programmer. That is an interesting moniker. It's an amusing moniker to me. That's what I was going for. Good find, Brett. Thank you. Have fun. Wilmot's Warehouse is awesome. Good luck. If y'all haven't played Wilmot's Warehouse with a friend, I think it should be on your list of things to do someday. Whoops, I'm changing my mind. We'll do it like this instead. Okay, and the reason for that is then I can go and apply that to this. And this equally. And then all I have to do is up here where I said faded would be like that, I'll get rid of it. And in my helpers functions, I'll add in transparent color, color, alpha, segfault right away. Vickers. Let's try to figure out why in a second. So one thing I realized is I never did this. If side layout does not equal 0, then I want to put, here, let's do this. I equals 0. Still crashing, but we got that part fixed. So, no more guessing at what might be going on. Let's take a look. The string is null. How did that happen? QU tick, side layout, 12, 3. If side string does not equal 0, then generate the layout for the side layout. Okay, Enter the dungeon. Okay, so that looks the same, but that's actually correct, weirdly enough. I never said that we're in the dungeon. So when you enter the dungeon, we gotta go over to this dungeon entrance piece. When you enter the dungeon, yeah, we have a game command called select dungeon entrance. Now we can say game state logic in dungeon equals true. So at that point you are in the dungeon and we crash. Perfect. No, not perfect. What is this? What is this crash? End paragraph. The string is still null. Game side string. Why are you like this? Player key is null. Oh, did I make this more complicated by, let's see, run init. When does that happen? Yeah, so normally that goes there. So when does this get used? Set purpose, payload kind, set purpose, set purpose. Okay, so we're gonna make that something that we wrap up like this. We're gonna stick it right here. Payload purpose, and then entity def. Where do we find one of those? That's right there. So there's the name of our function. There's the body of our function. And instead of getting that from a payload, we just take it from the parameter. We still need to grab the game state like that. And then up here, when I'm cheating and not going through the intro to the game for development expediency, I will just call that so it completely does the right thing when I force the creature purpose. Okay, so thoughts. I don't see anything on the left. There's supposed to be something over there. Let's figure out why we don't see anything. Let's go. Let's play it this way. Hit that, and now let's go to the QUTick function. Okay. Let's see how this part looks. Okay, so we did in fact create two layouts, but we put the main layout in twice. Yep, there's the mistake. 32, 2, side layout, side layout. Very good. Okay, so that is close, but also 100% backwards. In terms of color. The main string has that color. I don't want to set the whole string's color. I want to set the last partial string's color. So instead of setting the default string that then affects all of these, I'm trying to set the specific string that just got generated here. That should do it. If I rebuild. There we go. So that is pretty good. I don't like the fact that the spacing is like that. So I think something we're finally going to do is I'm going to go and modify. Spotify stopped on me again. Maybe I just need to install the Spotify app or something, because the browser version is just like crashing all the time. Maybe it's because I'm streaming though. Maybe it doesn't like streaming audio to me while I'm video streaming. So I want to fix the layout of this, and I don't like, yeah, this feels unbalanced, right? Like this is too far to the left. It should be over here. It should be a little bigger. This should be a little farther to the left. It's too far to the right. So some tweaks to make. Let's start with the paragraph one, because that's the one that's going to take the most out of us. We're going to try to make it so that when you set a paragraph, end of paragraph, and what we're going to have to do here, this is going to be a little time consuming, is we're going to go end of paragraph, find the one there, and, well, we don't even know, we can't do that yet. So let's do, in here, when we find a paragraph, and we go to layout, we want to look at the layout function. Yeah, paragraph Y space. You see how it's just fixed right there? We want to end that. So, end paragraph, end paragraph. Okay. So if we detect an end of paragraph, I need to think of look at all the places where we do something with the end of a paragraph. So here we're splitting things into words. If we find an end of paragraph, okay, so the fancy string has a Boolean called end paragraph. It's going to need to have an F32 called paragraph space. And we will copy the paragraph space onto the new string from the OG string here. So we're carrying that forward. Okay, end paragraph. So if this is not the end of a paragraph, good, good. Yeah, yeah. End paragraph here. Okay, that's fine. End paragraph here. This is all fine. If we are at the end of a line because of this, this, or this, yeah, that's fine. End paragraph. Okay, here's where it gets interesting. If we find an end paragraph node, we then apply paragraph white space. We're going to just grab the paragraph space that is attached to the string node now. So the string can tell us how much paragraph space we want to do. And I think that's everything we need to do in the layout section. So what's left is when we call end paragraph here. Well, let's see. Where is the app size scale? Right. So we do want to, okay. End paragraph. Paragraph space. Yeah, paragraph space. Paragraph space. What we want to do is we want to stick that into there. So paragraph space will actually be a U32, and it'll get scaled right when we use it. And the reason it'll get scaled right when we use it is because it makes my life easier, right? It'd be smarter to scale it maybe sooner in the process. In case, well, I don't think it would make any difference now that I'm thinking about it. It might make most sense to scale these things deeper in the process, actually, so I could take advantage of some low-level speed-up opportunities. But no time for stuff like that in the middle of the 7-day challenge. So grab that from there. So the default was 30 before. So what we're going to do next is when we mark something as end paragraph, we're going to put a paragraph space here instead of a Boolean, because it turned out we never wanted to turn off paragraphing anyways, because it wouldn't make sense to do that. So we'll just say if you're calling the function, you are ending a paragraph on that node, but you get to say the space that will be applied at the end of the paragraph. And having a quick think. I think I'm going to just go ahead and do it this way. I was thinking about maybe doing something different. Alex Kelbo asked, why do you type def some structs and not others? I think I type def all of my structs. if you're talking about like this, why this is why I have to use the struct, it's because I'm inside the fancy string. So what I'm not doing is I'm not pre-type defing fancy string and then using it like this, right? So this is what I could do, right? Now I'm pre-type defing fancy string, and so this works. But if I define the struct and include the type def on the definition of the struct, then the type def isn't completed yet within the scope, and so I have to use the struct. And I actually like it that way. I like it because of the fact that struct keyword gets syntax highlighted, and pointers that are self-referential are the most interesting most of the time. It's a good way to just get a free like. The pointers that are pointers to your own type really define, like here we have a chain of these, and this is, you can just glance at this, or at least I can just glance at this and go, oh, look at that, 3 self pointers. This must be a tree because we got children, and it's a linked list of children in each node. That's a structure for a tree. So I like it this way. I can see why it could be annoying if you're like, wait, everywhere else you use pre-typed def, like you don't have to struct out all of these other types of pointers like here. But I like having the highlight on self-referential pointers. Maybe it's just something I'm used to. It is, I will be 100% honest, if I had a language that didn't require type defing and didn't require this, I wouldn't use it. So I'm kind of making excuses, but I'm really just explaining why I do this instead of pre-type defing it. Pre-type defing it to me feels a little bit more annoying than doing it this way. But yeah, if I could just do C style, that's exactly what I would do. Like I would much prefer to write code that looks like this. If I had the option, I wouldn't. It's one of the main reasons why I'm not like. One of the main reasons why I resisted going full C for a long time is that this is kind of annoying. Okay, so now what we need to do is macro up anywhere where we find end paragraph with a 1, we're going to turn it into a 30, and we're going to go to the next end paragraph. And then I apply. If I ever find myself jumping to one I don't want to apply it to, I can just hit Alt-N to skip it instead of applying it. But this way I can put the 30 everywhere, where it used to be a 1. And so we didn't actually change any of the behavior, hopefully. Or any of the final behavior, I should say. We've reconstructed the pattern of how this gets calculated in quite a significant way, but we've not actually changed the results, if this works. And there we go. That's all of them. So now, if that worked, which I should test. Yep, this looks the same. That looks the same. Let's go and fix some of this other stuff. So I said I would do this. I'm going to just take that back and say, well, maybe the problem is just this is too big. So let's keep shrinking it down, maybe. Maybe. I mean, I could just stick in a number here, but it wouldn't be screen resolution independent then. So maybe it's too big. And this over here we said was too big. Let's try 55 instead of 66, right? And so it's just a tiny shift over to the right. And when we build a side string, we're going to drop the spacing. If I say spacing of 0, is that a problem? Or does that still give me like an end of line and like a normal line advance? Yeah, it gives me just a basic line advance. That's awesome. Okay. I think the text on the left is too small. I think the text on the left is not centered where I want it. Actually, you know, it still feels small too. Okay, let's try that. And why aren't you... Yeah, this should be centering using the side strings layout size. How do you guys feel about that? I know we're not going for perfection here. It's going to be a little bit off. But... like, what am I missing? Does this feel off to you? Feels something doesn't feel right. Like, I don't necessarily think it's a good... Maybe this title should line up with this one. Maybe they should... Maybe it should go there. But I don't want it, like, jumping around all the time. I could stick it up there, but that feels even worse. I can make it bigger and stick it up there. Yeah. Also, it's not faded at all. That might just be because I didn't fade it enough. Let's try getting like really aggressive with the amount of fading to see if it's working at all. Okay, so that's clearly faded. And I do kind of feel like having the fading up higher helps. I'm going to make it a little less faded. Okay, I can make it bigger. It's so little text that it could afford to be nice and big. Okay. That's too bright. All right, after the first one, I'll give it a little bit of spacing. Good. And font. We could change the font. Let's pick a new font for it. That will make it so much better feeling. Let's just grab open source monospace. What's a good... And there's so many like art project monospace fonts out there, aren't there? Let's just type open source fonts. We can browse on the Google Fonts thing for a sec. Monospace. What's I like this one. Okay. Give me just a sec. Move files around over here. So I gotta add that to my font list. We'll call this our mono font. And it's in PT mono / PT mono - regular. And so what happens if I choose the mono font for my thing on the side? Does that, yeah, that makes it feel better to me. Let's do a couple of adjustments. I think it could get away with being a little smaller now. I think the spacing would feel better if it was bigger. Here. Yeah. Okay. I like that. I'll live with that. I could go with a little more padding from the left side. I could also... I could see it living like in the bottom left corner. Let's try and actually do that. Let's say that when we go to position the side string, we don't just put it on the left, but we put it on the right, and we subtract the whole height. So that'll put it exactly flush with the bottom, and this will put it exactly flush with the left. Let's take a look at what that looks like. Can't see it at all. What did I screw up? Here's the bottom and the left. Oh. Right. Exactly flush with the left, exactly flush with the bottom. And yeah, I like that. I have a couple of reasons for liking that. I am going to push it in. I'm not going to have it perfectly flush, but I like it being sort of here in the corner. And the reason I like that is because since this is a game jam game, it clearly indicates that like this is some rough UI that didn't get design love, but it's just sort of neat and necessary stuff that's on the screen. So you can sort of, in a game jam context with a 7-day time limit, you can sort of look at that and go, oh, I get what they're saying. They're saying that this is something they don't know how to lay out, but they need me to see it. And then what I can do is, we don't need to actually adjust the position of the main layout at all, is the other cool thing. Like this can just go be its good, pretty self. And this gets laid out like this. And then we can just push this in a little bit. So 0, 2. And how do we adjust this? This gives us the full bottom. Let's go 0.98 maybe, minus the full height. It's too big. 1.5. Let's try that. Yeah. Yeah, I think I could live with that. I think I could also refresh Spotify. And I have the size at 32 now. Right? Or 34? Did I have it at 34? Yeah. I might be able to get away with making it a little smaller now that it has its own font and it has its own, like, it's faded. All these different things. I think that now maybe if it was smaller. Yeah. Perfect. Perfect. Okay, so check this out. Now that we can see it, the game, let's see how the game feels. If I explore quickly, wait, time went up by 2. That's not right. If I explore quietly, time went up. Oh, wait, no, that's right. That's right, because exploration doesn't necessarily, right. If I explore quickly, time goes up by 2 means that I spent 2 ticks looking and then I found something. I will leave the chest for now, and I will explore quickly again. And find a set of stairs that goes farther down. I'm going to explore thoroughly the rest of the dungeon. And I've turned over everything in the dungeon. Alex Kelbo, I neither pre-bake them at certain sizes nor SDF scale them. Well, I guess I pre-bake them at certain sizes at runtime. So what I do is I load in, at the beginning, I load in all of my TTF files into memory. And then when I go to render, I just say, here's the font I want, here's the size I want. And it looks up in a cache if I've rendered that font with that size before. So I can't very easily like scale freely. Like I can't take this string here and have it grow and shrink, because then it would hit like every size and it would be a problem. But as long as I'm hitting like, 10 or so different font configs per frame, it's keeping up just fine. And it's not like I have it, I have the option at any point to restrict it to like, hey, just grab the like ASCII range. That can help a lot too. I haven't actually picked any fonts yet that are like, if I picked Arial, then just rendering the whole font, rasterizing it ahead of time would actually be a bit pricey at this, even at this size here of this title piece. That would be pricey because Arial just has, it's like a font that covers as many languages as possible in a single font without being specialized for more unique purposes. It's just like a very general purpose font is what I'm trying to say. But most of these fonts I've picked don't seem to have as many glyphs as that. It's like a few hundred rather than a few thousand, so I haven't hit an issue. But if I need to, I can always restrict it to just the like 90 or 100 characters that I need for my game. You're right, turns is more accurate probably. Let's do a couple adjustments. Thanks for the thought. We'll do turns. Eventually, once the story game stuff is working better, I would actually like to have time. And what I would do with time is like literally say how many days and hours have happened and have story stuff that lines up with those. I feel like that would be a really fun change to what normally happens because you like I have ideas here of like, what if you make camp as a part of the general rhythm of this. But I don't have enough detail here for that to really pan out right now. The other thing I could do is I could like put in some padding. So these will always be 0, 1, or 2. But I can go 1, 2, 3, 4 to line that up with this. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And we'll give this the same treatment. So padding of 5 on each. And that didn't work. Why didn't that work? Why doesn't that work? Oh, never mind. I can't do that. Ugh, I always forget this. So if you make a system where you have, layout that is sophisticated and like parsing out words and laying out the spaces manually, then you run into stuff where like format strings, which rely on the idea of inserting spaces to align things, doesn't work anymore because you're like thrown out the fix with the space. You can see like this isn't rendering the monospace size for the spaces because my layout engine rearranges the words, and same thing is happening when I try to use spaces for getting everything laid out. But there we go. So you can get this far into the game. I think now I'm happy with that. We can go, let's go set the game in it to be the way it's supposed to be. So instead of hard coding this, instead of this, it just starts on the intro. Ah, the ink file. Right, got it. So why is there a QUS ink? What is that coming from? So this is where I was mentioning this earlier. I've restricted it to you have to pick this option. In the original vision I had for this game that I was gonna spend a month on, all 3 were gonna be options, and they will be in the eventual month-long version if I keep working on it and finish it the way I envision. But for now, you pick this path, and then you get to start the game here. So you always are the Beast Slayer in this particular jam version. But now, if we explore quickly, you can see 6 turns happens. Now, I did this a minute ago. If I explore quickly the whole dungeon, and then I explore thoroughly, So it took me 16 turns to clear out the dungeon doing it that way. So check this out. I want to do the same thing again. First dungeon is roughly the same size every time. There might be a few more secrets or a few less secrets each time. What if I explore thoroughly the whole time? What happens? If you explore thoroughly the whole time, it costs more turns in total. See that? That's the idea. So the exploration mechanic, the way it works is instead of you deciding strategically like you would on a grid-based RPG how to manage your turns, you get a trade-off between these three options. This saves time, so fewer turns. This attracts fewer monsters. I've disabled monsters, but it's the equivalent amount of exploration, but half as many monster spawns, or half as many monster encounters get rolled in the process. And when you do get monster rolls, I haven't implemented this yet, but I'd like to have it so that you get like a passive stealth level and a boosted stealth level for this, so you are more likely to encounter a monster before it sees you and get the advantages of sort of surprise advantage, like not being noticed while you approach the monster. And if you explore thoroughly, you don't get either of these advantages, but you uncover those secrets that are currently unimplemented but show up like this. And so there are a few things you can only find by exploring thoroughly. And so that is now much clearer through this interface. I've now explored this entire area, so I'm going to go down the stairs. And I'll keep exploring. Since there is no penalty to using up my time right now, I will keep going. Still no keys. I want to make keys a little more common. I'm annoyed that I'm not finding keys when I play. Yeah, I've gone through 3 levels now and no keys. What's happening? Previously I said I was suspicious, but maybe it made sense. But now I'm like, it feels like I just need to go and look closely at the key potential situation. Something ain't coming out the way I think it should. So, stairs and doors are fine. It's random items that I'm interested in. So here we are. I choose to generate one chest at the first level every time. And the new chest potential at the end is 1. I rolled 0. Oh, these are wrong. These are just wrong. So that came out 0 because I'm rolling this. I should actually be rolling the potential plus 1. And the reason for that is if the potential is 1, then that means I should be allowed to spawn 1. But if I roll, the function for roll, if you say roll 1, means it rolls, it's like a one-sided die. And so the only thing that can come out is 0. So if I, in this system, roll n means make a roll where 0 to n minus 1 are the possible results. It's a little confusing, but it's useful for like if since it's zero-based indexing, if I have an array of 10 elements and I say roll 10, then I get back an index that grabs something from that array. But it's less intuitive when you're trying to like use it for rolling a count, like in this case. So here, I think it's doing the right thing because I thought that part through correctly or carefully earlier, right? So if I have a chest potential of 1 and an n min of 1, then this path wouldn't even happen. If I have a chest potential of 1 and an n min of 0, oh, this doesn't work because a chest potential of 1 and an n min of 0 so if they're both the same, let's think about this. If they are both the same, like they're both a 1, for instance, then the most I could roll is a 1, but the minimum I'm allowed to take is 1, so then you have to take n min, right? But if chest potential is larger, then if it's larger by 1, then I want to roll either a 0 or a 1, but right now I can only roll a 0, so this is also wrong. I think maybe I need a different design here. I think I need 2 different types of roll functions. I have roll n, and I think I need a roll I. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually do this. I know this is a little bit This is digging into a design of the code base kind of issue rather than making progress for the sake of playability. But that just reflects where my priorities really are, I guess. So the thing I've been using called role N is going to get renamed to role I. So if I'm doing like a index role, we could call it. Roll an index with this count, right? That's kind of the idea. This is going to be role N, which is going to mean 0 to N inclusive. So let's do it that way. And now let's track down all the places where we're calling role N. And like this is definitely a role index. That's a role index. This is a role N. You can tell it's a role N because I put all these +1s in there. That's a role N. That's a role index. 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 Pop level. All right, this one might be wrong. If I have a pop level of 1 and I get a 1 here, pop level of 1, undefeated count of 1. Pop level of 1, undefeated count of 1. You always get the undefeated one. Yeah, that actually is right. So that's an index. Yeah, that's just the definition of the thing. Option combat, or option count. Max minus min. So this is definitely a role index because we've already been relying on this quite heavily, so it should be the original meaning of the function. Also a role index. Yeah. So that's a role N. That's a role N. That's a role N. That's a role index. Role index. There we go. Okay. I don't know if that is an improvement or not, but I need to plug it in and start feeling it out, see if that's better. Something I've never felt super good about is like, what are the, like, I haven't developed a super strong sense of taste about what a good, like, low level, like, what are the primitives of random number generation that I want available for the purposes of writing procedural generation code. And so it's like I'm still feeling things out and experimenting with style and figuring out what's confusing and what's effective. Okay. So, hopefully I can get keys now, if that worked. So up to 3 key entities. So we start with the potential of 1. We could get a key there. Key potential is going to actually increment by we'll have it alternate between 1 and 2. So if if the current iterator is on a even level, then we increment by 2 the key potential. Otherwise, we increment by 1 the key potential. That'd be a few, like, I don't want to have, it's like I'm trying to find a way to increment by 1/2 an integer. Or 1.5 integers, you know what I mean? Alternating between 2 and 1 is like 3 out of 2. Okay. Find a locked chest. I'm going to see if I can get a key for it. I found a key and put it in my pack. Look at that. I have 1 key now. I can go back to the locked chest and use my key. My key is down to 0. The chest opens. Okay, cool. That is a good checkpoint. I think now might be a good time for me to take a 30-minute break and get some lunch. And when I come back, I want to build this out into an inventory system because I still can't have items, right? So this is a huge step forward. It feels great to have this in the game. And now this gives me the option to say, like, that's where I'm going to stick some expendable resources and some renewable resources. Like, I could put in an energy system pretty easily now because I have the ability to see energy going up and down. I could put in items. And I think those two things, a renewable resource and a non-renewable resource option, will upgrade the tactics. Since no one's seen this yet, before I take my lunch break, I'll show you guys one other thing. This is just kind of something that I'm excited about. So yesterday I wrapped up the combat system and got to start plugging in creatures. So if we explore quickly, we should encounter, so we start encountering creatures here. And so I have options here about how to deal with it. With the rat, I already know what's going to happen. Like if I run, I'm not fast enough to get away from the rat, but he can't hurt me. If I wait, he's not tough enough to even hurt me with his bite. If I fight, I beat the rat, right? So the rat is a no big deal. It's just a first dungeon level encounter to give you a chance to interact with the combat system basically and see how different parts work. It does not interact with the turn system at all. It does not expend any resources to do any of the things I did. And it might be fun to upgrade the combat system with that kind of stuff. The other thing that can happen, right? Oh, we found another one. The bat might the bat might be a bit more interesting because even though it's no danger to us, it's a little harder to wrap up the encounter. Again, I didn't spend any turns dealing with that. But another thing that has to happen that hasn't happened yet is when you try to explore and you have an encounter happen, that encounter sort of prevents you from getting the benefit of the exploration because you got interrupted by the encounter. And I'd like to guarantee that if you defeat the thing, right? So if you run away or it runs away, maybe this doesn't apply. But if you defeat the thing, then you get the reward of you can't be interrupted again. Instead, you do finish the exploration that you asked for. So that is another thing we might do, is to finish out the strategic elements of the encounter system here. Let's see if I can get through a few of these. So there we go. I can find a locked chest, and I can get back to the locked chest. And now because I'm having encounters, I'm spending more turns just trying to explore. And so exploring quickly. Okay, let's get back to the locked chest. And there we go. I got to the locked chest and didn't have an encounter. I'm curious if I try to run away from the bat, will it let me get away? Okay, I got away from the bat. If I go back to the locked chest, does it ever... Let's see if I can get away from the snake. Yeah, I got away from the snake. I'm trying to see if going to the locked chest can trigger... now that I can just go back and forth between these, I'm trying to get to one of these, but get interrupted en route, and I'm not having it happen. So I'm wondering if, like, you can see turns are being spent on the bottom left. it's taking me 2 turns to travel back and forth each time. But it's taking me 2 turns to travel back and forth each time, but it's not generating in random encounters with creatures, which it should do. So I'm going to make a couple of to-dos here for when I get back from lunch break. One, probably item system, energy system, so that I have some non-renewable resource and a renewable resource for making combat more interesting, but also ensure encounters can interrupt returning to entities sometimes. And I want to ensure that defeating enemy leads to successful exploration, right? So I want to go back and do that. Maybe also spend turns during combat, maybe. I'm not sure about that. One. But those are some things I want to spend some time on. And these first two might be the most important. A couple other details here. Ability to use items when relevant. Design some items. Track energy inside string. Ability to rest. And spend energy on some actions, right? So something like forcing a lock open might cost you a point of energy, and running during combat might cost you a couple points of energy or something. And so you have a renewable resource where if you get to a safe spot and you get some time to rest and you don't get interrupted while you're resting, then you can recover all of that, but it might be less overall powerful than having items to spend, but those items are one-time use, right? Or rather, they might be one-time use, or they require a recharge that is not as easy as just resting to get it back. It might be that, like, you have to go to a special place. Like, if I have an item, magical item that's like I've got the Holy Grail as one of the items that I've planned in the game, and if I manage to get that in there for the 7-day challenge, then there could be mechanics like you have to go and find a natural stream of water so that you can actually, like, fill the cup and drink from it in order to activate its ability. And so it's restricted in some way. It's not a sort of renewable resource available all the time. So the different item interactions there to deal with. That includes, like, spending one-use items, tracking charges on items, act ability, context, so sensitive item, yeah, so there's a lot to do. Like I said, I'm going for 5 hours. I'm looking to do like 10 hours today. I've done 2.5. So this is like the first 25% of the work. I think that this is good progress. I think this is a good pace, but I need a lunch break. So I'm going to sign off for now, and I will be back again in about 30 minutes. I'll see you guys around.